Today's video is brought to you by creativesdothis.com. It starts in a basement, a faint light, a single phone camera pointed towards the floor. There's a sound like dripping water, but thicker. Then we hear a breath. A young man's voice says something in German, followed by silence. The clip would appear online just hours later. At first, nobody thought it was real. A small room, strange marks on the floor, and the person behind the camera, smiling. To the internet, it was just another dark web hoax. People called it a fake video, a prank, a creepypasta gone too far. Until that is, someone noticed something oddly familiar. The walls, the wallpaper, the window. They matched a real house in a quiet German neighborhood in a city called Herne. And in a stark moment of realization, only a few doors away from that house, a 9-year-old boy had just gone missing. The first real clue didn't come from the police. It came from a message board. Anonymous users on 4chan noticed some new posts from an account calling itself Marcel. The messages were short and unsettling. "I just hurt someone. Doesn't feel bad, to be honest." The online community tried to laugh it off. They thought it was a roleplay, a joke for attention. But that Marcel account kept on posting. Photos appeared next. A young man, blonde hair, glasses, holding a sharp implement. One image showed him washing it, another posing, his hands streaked in red. And then another haunting line of text. "I wanted to bring someone else here next." Was this an act, a movie, or something far, far worse? That same night, police in Herne received a call. It was about 9-year-old Jaden. He hadn't come home. Neighbours joined in the search. They combed the streets, the playgrounds, the parking lots, but nobody found anything. Then someone mentioned a name. It belonged to the guy that lived next door. He was quiet, polite, but strangely withdrawn. Meanwhile, 4chan was buzzing. Someone had traced the IP address of the disturbing posts, and they did indeed lead to Herne, Germany. At first, users couldn't believe it, but then local news broke through the noise, and in that moment, everything changed. The internet realized that video was not fake. The basement wasn't a movie set, and the person behind the camera, he wasn't an anonymous troll hiding in the dark web. He was right there, in the suburbs, next door to a family, searching for their son. At that point, the world at large still didn't know who the man in the video was, but he was just getting started. By the way, this is Dark Case, and you can call me Jack. I bring you rare and unseen true crime cases, as well as other things that you may later regret knowing, with multiple uploads every single week. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, then make sure you join the Dark Case family now by hitting subscribe and turning all notifications on. And now for today's silly little question. What is the strangest thing that you've ever eaten? Careful, let me know down in the comments. All of your support over on Patreon, as well as right here via channel memberships on YouTube, are so appreciated, and I really can't thank you all enough. However, thank you. But now, on with the video. Before the events of this video, there was just a normal family, a quiet street in Herne, Germany, respectable homes, bikes on the sidewalk, a city that looked safe. 9-year-old Jaden enjoyed that safety without a second thought. He was small, blonde, full of energy, the kind of kid who wanted to help everyone. Neighbours said that he was polite and always smiling, always asking questions. And one of the people that he saw most often on the street was Marcel, the guy that lived next door. Marcel Hesse was 19. He was very slim, quiet, still living with his sister after their parents had moved out. He kept himself to himself, he stayed indoors, he liked gaming, and he was online all night. People thought that he was harmless. Weird, maybe, but still harmless. Marcel would sometimes wave to Jaden. They were on friendly terms. But what no one realised was that, by early March of 2017, something inside Marcel had already broken. A few weeks earlier, he was in a very bad way. He'd locked himself in a room with carbon monoxide, trying to take his own breath away. But that failed, and after that moment, something in him changed. He told himself he wanted to live now, and now he wanted to do something that would make sure that he'd never have to live normally ever again. He wanted to commit a crime that was so severe, he would be in prison for the rest of his life. And so on the evening of March the 6th, he went out looking to make his dreams a reality. This wasn't necessarily about revenge. He just wanted to feel something. This video is sponsored by Creatives Do This, a platform that I've helped to launch that features real interviews with real artists, candle makers, musicians, and creatives of all kinds who are making it work. Right now, we're looking for creatives to feature. So if you've made money from your creativity, whether it's a full-time career or a new side hustle, and you want to share how you did it, we'd love to hear your story. It's just a short text-based interview and it takes around 10 minutes. And in return, you get free lifetime access to everything that the platform becomes. Plus, your work will get featured to inspire others and to build your brand. Hit the link in the description or the pinned comment to take the quick interview and to become one of the 100 founding members. There's now less than 50 spaces left. www.creativesdothis.com. At around 6 p.m, Jaden was at home with his stepbrothers whilst his parents were out doing the shopping. Then came a knock at the door. It was Marcel. He asked Jaden if he could come over. He claimed that he needed help setting up a ladder. It sounded like a simple favour, something that any helpful kid would do. And Jaden said sure. He grabbed his shoes and he followed Marcel next door before disappearing into the front door. When Pascal and Jeanette came home later that evening, the family home was quiet. Jaden wasn't in his room. He wasn't in the yard. He wasn't at his friend's house. They repeatedly called out his name, but they received no answer. And then Jeanette said something that still haunts Pascal to this day. Something bad has happened. The parents started searching. The street, the backyard, even the next door garden. When Pascal knocked on Marcel's door, nobody answered. The lights were off, the curtains were closed, but he thought that he could hear something, perhaps a faint sound coming from inside. He called for his stepson once again, still no reply. That's when he decided to just go in. He climbed up onto Marcel's balcony and he slipped in through an unlocked door. The air inside was thick and strange, something metallic, something wrong. Searching through the house, he realized that downstairs the cellar door was open. Inside a light was flickering, and in that small, cluttered basement, Pascal found the one thing that no parent should ever see. He later said, "The picture of my stepson lying there, I will never forget it." Police arrived within minutes, but already the internet had been flooded. Police would soon realize that this wasn't a random event. The whole thing was a sick performance. At first, they thought Marcel must have fled on foot. But while officers searched the streets of Herne, Marcel was already online, and he was posting. Police officers didn't realize it yet, but by the time they entered that basement, the video was already spreading. Hundreds of miles away, people were downloading it. They were sharing it, talking about it like it was a game. On 4chan, the images appeared first, then the video clips. A pale young man staring into the camera, a weapon, a cellar floor, and underneath, a caption reading, "I just killed my neighbour's child. Doesn't feel bad, to be honest." It was posted under the name Marcel Hesse. Yes, his real name. He wasn't hiding what he'd done at all. The infamy is what he wanted. At first, moderators thought it was all a prank, not exactly unusual. But then the thread really exploded. Thousands of users reposted the images before they were taken down again and again. One wrote, "Fake, you can see the stage light." Another replied, "There's no light. That's a police flashlight." And that's when people began to notice something that started to connect the dots. A reflection in the red puddle on the floor. It showed the person behind the camera. Everything was lining up. Meanwhile, Marcel was still posting. He uploaded another new picture. It was him washing a sharp implement under running water. Then another picture, smiling with crimson on his hands. He wrote, "My hand bleeds a little. That's the only annoying part." Minutes later, he added something absolutely haunting. "I want to get a girl next. Maybe I'll rape her." Police were stunned. They'd never seen a case like this. A killer documenting his crime live and then turning his confession into entertainment. The local media called him the dark web killer. But technically that wasn't true. This wasn't technically the dark web. It was just a dark level of the surface web. But in this instance, the line between the two had pretty much disappeared. Detectives raced to pull down the footage, but they couldn't keep up. Copies multiplied and multiplied. They appeared on messaging apps, in chat rooms, and on encrypted forums. People debated whether this was all real until one user wrote, "I know this guy. He's from Herne." He contacted the police, and that tip changed everything. By the next morning, investigators had identified the suspect. His name, address, his online accounts, all confirmed. But Marcel was gone. He'd vanished before the first officers had even arrived, and now nobody knew where he'd gone. Police did find evidence that he packed a small bag, some clothing, a sharp weapon, and his phone. That phone, they believed, was still recording, still sharing his every move. And while police flooded the city searching for him, Marcel was actually hiding somewhere close. He was reading every single news update about himself. He was watching his own manhunt as it happened. In one of his early posts, he wrote, "I know that people die slowly when you slaughter them. Maybe I'll turn myself in after a few days and enjoy life in prison." He was being extremely casual, as if this wasn't a real-life horror, as if this was a normal life plan. The next time Marcel's name would appear online, it would be connected to a second body. By the morning of March the 7th, the city of Herne wasn't sleeping. Parents kept their children home from school. Police cars patrolled every block. Helicopters hovered overhead, and every few hours new sightings poured in. But none of them were real. Police described Marcel Hesse as 19 years old, as slim, blonde hair, glasses, a martial arts fanatic who might still be armed. They warned the public, do not approach him, call immediately. Still, the rumours spread faster than the facts. Online, thousands of people had turned the case into a digital chase. Some were trying to help, tracing IPs, scouring chat logs. Others were just watching, curious and excited. 4chan threads filled with theories. Other online groups claimed that they'd found Marcel's hideout. Some people even uploaded fake photos. Young men on train platforms, hospital waiting rooms or bus stops, each claiming to be Marcel. And every time one of these surfaced, police had to respond. One tip led officers to a hospital in Mönchengladbach. They thought that Marcel had come in with a hand injury as per his posts. But when they arrived, the person in the waiting room wasn't him. Another tip pointed to a school 25 kilometers away. Police surrounded the building, but nothing. Every false lead was just wasting time. Time that Marcel was using to hide and to keep on posting. He was reading the coverage about himself. He was even commenting on it. In a new post, he bragged, "Police call me unstable, but I feel rational. I cleaned up the place, even washed the weapon." He sounded calm and focused, almost proud of what he'd done. Then he wrote something else, something that made investigators believe that the nightmare wasn't over. "I fought the 120-kilo beast. She resisted more than the child. Torture was needed to get her bank details. This suggested a woman, another victim, but now police didn't know if he was telling the truth or just taunting them. No missing woman matched that description, but in a way it didn't matter. The city panicked now more than ever, because if Marcel was still out there, he may well already be hunting someone else. And then, that night, officers received a new call. Reports of smoke in a nearby apartment. They raced to the scene, and at first they thought the flames were an accident. Then they found something on the wall, a red handprint, and suddenly police realized this was Marcel striking again. When investigators searched the burning flat, they expected a clue. Instead, what they found was another body. A young man, Christopher W., 22 years old. He was sprawled beside a melted game controller. The heat had peeled the paint from the walls, but one thing survived the flames. A sharp implement with no handle, blackened steel, lying near the door. Christopher had known Marcel for years. They'd met online, bonded over gaming and martial arts. When Marcel showed up at his apartment on that Tuesday night, he told Christopher that he'd argued with his parents and that he needed a place to crash. So Christopher let him in. They played video games, they ordered food, and they talked until sunrise. What Christopher didn't know was that, just hours earlier, Marcel had already done the unthinkable. But by morning, news of Jaden's demise was everywhere. Photos of the wanted man filled German screens. And when Christopher saw the image, his guest's face staring back at him through the screen, he froze. He turned to Marcel. "Is this you?" For a moment, Marcel said nothing. Then he smiled. No one knows the exact words, but investigators believe that Christopher threatened to call the police. Marcel then grabbed the weapon once again. A struggle ensued. 68 wounds were inflicted. It was fast, chaotic, and by all accounts it was oddly quiet. Neighbours heard only one single thud. Afterwards, Marcel cleaned up. He wiped his hands, took another photo, this time holding the red-streaked implement over Christopher's body. He uploaded it to a forum and wrote, "Another one feels the same." Then he poured lighter fluid across the carpet and lit the match. The fire, however, didn't spread very far. It burned just long enough to make sure that the evidence looked accidental, or so he thought. When police arrived, they could still smell the accelerant, and that was all they needed to know, that Marcel had been there. But here's the twist. While the world believed that Marcel was on the run, he was actually still inside Herne. He was hiding in the very city that was searching for him. He camped in the same flat for 3 days, ordering food with Christopher W.'s accounts, posting updates to forums, and watching his own story explode across the internet. One of his posts read, "I've been reading all the threads about my deeds while sorting the fridge. The trick is to indulge in daily necessities." He sounded detached and methodical, but whether it's just the translation or not, by this point it does sound like he's starting to lose it a little. In another entry, he mocked psychologists. "I don't fit your bullied kid cliché. I always stood up to my bullies and became one myself." Then he added, "Murder doesn't feel special. It's just movements, cuts, waiting." That final word, waiting, haunted detectives. Waiting for what? Another victim? Waiting for that final breath? Or waiting to be caught? Outside, thousands of officers still scoured the region. Helicopters circled. Schools locked their doors. Every stranger now looked like the face from the wanted posters. And all the while, Marcel sat in the dark, scrolling through headlines that called him the Dark Web Butcher. He read comments that said, "He's probably already out of Germany." He smiled, because he wasn't. He was watching police walk right past the building. On the third night, he packed a small bag, a black umbrella, onions for some reason, and the same sharp implement, now cleaned. He looked in the mirror, took one last selfie and whispered, "Time to end the game." Then he stepped outside. After 3 days of relative silence, Herne woke up to the sound of breaking news. A man had walked into a restaurant, and he said the words that everyone had been waiting to hear. Thursday night, a small Greek fast food joint near the city centre, raining outside, a slow night for business. The door opens, and in walks a thin young man. He's soaked through, carrying a black umbrella and a sack of onions. He looks at the owner and says softly, "Please call the police. They're looking for me." At first, no one believes him. He looks too quiet, too calm, too unthreatening. The owner, confused, asks, "Who are you?" The man smiles faintly. "Marcel." "Which Marcel?" He points to the restaurant's TV showing the news. That one. And there it was, his own face. The same photo from every wanted poster in Germany. Police arrived 10 minutes later. They surrounded the restaurant, weapons drawn, expecting a fight. But Marcel didn't resist. He just sat at the counter, watching the blue lights flicker through the window. When officers cuffed him, he turned and said, "There's a fire nearby. You'll find someone inside." That someone was Christopher W., and police were already there. Even in custody, Marcel seemed to show no fear. When investigators asked why he'd come forward, he said, "I was bored." He explained how he'd been following the manhunt on his phone, how he'd been reading the comments, and how he'd laughed when people thought that he'd fled the country. He'd even saved screenshots, capturing his own name trending online. When detectives pressed him about Jaden, he shrugged. "I just wanted to do something jail-worthy." They asked if he regretted doing what he did, and he said, "No." His sister Sandy later confirmed the same thing in court. "He told me he's proud of what he did," she said. "I asked if he regretted it, and he looked at me coldly and said, no." She described him as strange, withdrawn, obsessed with the internet. As a child, Marcel had been aggressive towards teachers. He chased his own brother with sharp items. Even then, the sister said, he liked the feeling of power. He said himself, "I wanted to see what it felt like to kill. And now I know." He said that it didn't feel special, just final. But what chilled investigators the most wasn't the act itself. It was how he'd used it, how he'd filmed it, shared it, and turned his own crime into content. For 3 days, that basement had become a stage, the internet his audience, and the whole world his witness. When police asked him why he filmed it, he answered plainly, "Because if I didn't, no one would believe me." Then he smiled. When the trial began, reporters called it Germany's most disturbing modern case. But some locals called it something else, the basement video. In the courtroom, Marcel sat expressionless, no tears or remorse, just that same thin smile that had followed him from the internet into reality. His sister testified first. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "He doesn't regret it. He's proud. He told me himself." She told the court how he changed over the years, how he'd stopped speaking to his family, how he spent nights alone in the dark and lived more online than off. He was obsessed with proving something, she said, but we never knew what. For the families, the courtroom became a second crime scene. Jaden's stepfather, Pascal, couldn't bear to look at Marcel. He later told reporters, "Every time I close my eyes, I see him in that basement. That image would never leave him. There was nothing I could do," he said. "I tried, but there was too much blood. Too much." He couldn't finish the sentence. During the trial, investigators revealed some more new details. Marcel had been rejected by the army because they said he was mentally unstable. He told recruiters that he wanted to feel power, so they sent him home. Weeks later, he started searching the dark web for snuff content, trying to find videos and images that were real. When he couldn't be satiated, he then decided to make his own. Experts described him as a narcissist, a man detached from empathy, but deeply attached to attention. Psychologists said that he didn't kill for anger, he killed for the audience. He did it for validation, and really he admitted to this himself. "I wanted to be remembered." And when they asked him how long he thought that people would remember him, he smirked, "Maybe 5 years, then everyone alive will be dust anyway." Those words froze the courtroom, as if the end of a life, his, Jaden's, or anyone's, meant nothing at all. The prosecution called him a thrill killer, and the judge called him the embodiment of emptiness. When the verdict was read, life imprisonment, Marcel didn't react. He just nodded once, almost like he'd expected it, maybe even wanted it. After the sentencing, police admitted something quietly to reporters. The full video, the one Marcel uploaded, it can never be completely erased. Copies still circulate in dark corners of the internet, encrypted, hidden, passed between anonymous users like a forbidden secret. And every now and then, someone claims to have seen it resurface. A short clip, a flash of the boy, a dim basement light. And each time authorities track it down, try their best to get it removed. But it is out there, and it always will be. Be careful out there, and I'll see you soon.